Walking every minute, every mile, every second to you. And every time I close my eyes, all I see is you. This isn't just some little game anymore. You hold the cards now, you've changed what has come before. Might we not be happy together? Might we not be good? I could love you like no other if you love me like you promised you would. Oh, the lessons and the challenges I faced within this vessel and everything it takes from me, but it won't be contained by it, won't be tamed by it, no. Might we not be happy together? Might we not be good? I could love you like no other if you love me like you promised. You promised. So please don't hurt me. I'm not as strong as you might think. Take my hand and mean it. Take my heart and mean that too. Might we not be happy together? Might we not be good? I could love you like no other if you love me like you promised. Oh, you promised you would. Oh, you will. Oh, you do. You do. You do.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Hello and welcome to ALBW Live. I'm Pat Escate. I am the co-organizer of Anna Lister Birthday Weekend. Not a cheesy promo. I want to thank the fan who wrote in and said, I had to stop calling this cheesy. Ann Lister Birthday Weekend, a celebration of all things Ann Lister and Gentleman Jack, to be held in Halifax next July, the 18th through the 11th through the 18th. We are absolutely delighted to have our guest today, Anna Pritchard. She is the production designer for Gentleman Jack. She'll be coming on in just a minute. I want to ask you, though, two things. Number one, I want to ask you to stick around for a couple of minutes after Anna leaves us, because we have a couple of announcements to make. And also, I did want to take a minute to thank Steph Galloway for the music that she's been using for our intros. This is all original music that's been inspired by Gentleman Jack. So take a look for that. Okay. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Anna Pritchard.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Yes, and I want to point out to our audience that you can see the difference between Anna, the set designer, and myself with nothing here. Really nicely done. So Anna, let's just start out with the basic. What led you into production design to start with? How did you get there?
Oh, it's a very long story and it wasn't a direct one. So I'll come about it in a very quick way. So I knew from a very early age that I loved art. I loved, creating, I loved making.
Mhm.
And my parents weren't very happy for me to go to art school. But I, they pretty much said, as long as you learn trade, we're
Right.
happy.
Right. As long as
So I became a jeweler, and it's a very, very different route, but went to college, learned how to be a jeweler, and then ended up making props and jewelry for the film industry.
Okay.
And went to work in Los Angeles for a little bit in the props department
Wow.
for big films and all sorts of different things. And that's when I realized, oh my God, there's another world. I grew up in Wales. So for me, we didn't have much, we didn't have cinemas, we didn't have anything around us. So to know about the world of film and television was totally new.
Right.
To me.
But being in Wales, being out in the countryside where you were, when you and I talked, you talked a little bit about how that sort of inspired your jewelry, the shapes, et cetera, that you found in nature, bird skulls, that kind of thing, right?
Oh gosh, I used to collect. I'm an avid collector, which is obviously well, we're going to come with Anne Lister, but I used to collect so much stuff.
Right.
I used to make things with twigs, with, like you said, bird skulls. I used to make weird and wonderful things. I wanted to be a sculptor. I really wanted to be a sculptor. I wanted to be Barbara Hepworth, but
Yeah.
I was told, no, Anna, go to college, learn a trade,
Yeah.
be a good girl, look after yourself.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to be Louise Nevelson, so we have that a little bit in common, right?
Absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
So, and by the way, if you'd hold up your ring, I know that you have a piece of your jewelry on today.
Yes.
I just think that's phenomenal. It's
I
just
mean, it's this is quite crazy. So when I went to college, I loved architecture. And it was on my travels in Florence that I did a whole range of rings that sort of like studied all the architecture in Florence. So that was my love of architecture. And until I found, production design, and that's when I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I took myself back to college and retrained.
Now, you had also mentioned when we talked that one of the things that drove you into a different trade was that jewelry was a pretty lonely thing to do, right? You're sitting at the bench working by yourself. There's no team, there's no collaboration. And that
Absolutely.
sort of took you into this, correct?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I was a jeweler for over 10 years. I loved it. I was relatively successful. But it's a lonely job. You've got, you can sit with the radio on, you sit and you make, and it's wonderful. But it's the process as a production designer is so collaborative. You meet so many different interesting characters, and even though there's a lot that you have to do on your own, don't get me wrong, and you have to knuckle down and get the job done.
Right.
But the collaboration of being a production designer I just think it's the best job in the world. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Well, you're doing a great job with it, at least as it has to do with the program that we love and adore. So we're going to move into a little bit about talking about the team and what you do. But what I wanted to get to first, did you know anything about Anne Lister before Sally talked to you about this?
No, I really didn't. I was working on Vanity Fair, and I got a call from the producers to come for an interview, and luckily these scripts landed on my doorstep, and I had a really good read, and I was just blown away. I couldn't wait. I just wanted to start immediately. Right. Yeah. I think I actually turned up for the interview 1 week before I was meant to.
Did you really?
And he doesn't know that, but I actually I kind of like,
You didn't just stay at the doorstep for the entire week, did you? I love that. Your family knew something about Ann Lister, correct? I mean, didn't it kind
yeah,
of?
my mum is from the Leeds area, and all her family, and she knew a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And I just, when I read the script, I was, it blew me away, obviously. And I just thought, God, I need to know about this woman. I'm a Yorkshire girl,
Mm.
but didn't know much about it. But grew up in Wales, obviously, so
Yeah.
a little bit removed. But I
Right.
just couldn't wait to do the research on her. I really couldn't. It was, just became a passion, I think.
Yeah, one of the things that you said to me in our preliminary interview was that you thought that Gentleman Jack provided an exciting and important story, but you also said that how often do we hear historical facts from a woman's point of view?
Not enough is the
Yeah.
truth. And Anne Lister was so dynamic. I mean, I just thought, wow, this woman, these are the women that we want to hear about, and we want to hear about now.
Yeah.
It's so important
Yeah.
that this woman was doing everything that a man was, for over 200 years ago, nearly
Exactly.
200 years ago. It's impressive what she did.
Yeah, politics, coal mining, it's amazing what she had herself involved in. And I will tell you that many of our listeners, or many of the people that are involved with ALBW online in our groups, talk about the fact that, obviously we have a lot of gay women involved, but we have a lot of heterosexual women as well who just see the power that Ann Lister displays in terms of how she deals with the world is really phenomenal.
I think she's a very important role model. I think she's great.
Yeah.
I totally fell in love with her immediately.
Yeah, she's really something.
Yeah.
So let's move a little bit into the job of production design. If you could explain that for our viewers.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. So production designer is, and again, this is a very collaborative role. However, it's a role that we need to put the look of the show together.
Mm-hmm.
We're in charge of all the set builds. We oversee locations. We are trying to kind of manage how this show looks. And okay, forget the the dynamism of the actors and all of that for 1 minute. Just put them aside for 1 second. We deal with everything else.
Right.
So so it's quite a huge job. Like I said, taking the actors aside, taking the photography aside, we put together everything. So from, we will collaborate with locations to try and get the right locations together.
Right.
Where we can't find the locations, we will build the locations or build the set builds.
Right.
We deal with everything from the chair that they sit upon, to the pen that they write with, to the animals, to the carriages, to everything else that is on the screen.
Now, to that point, Anna, when we talked originally, you told me that when you first pick up a script, you're not just reading along with the story, you're actively imagining everything. Is that right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Number one, when I pick up a script, I just read. I don't analyze anything. And I have to analyze the script in a lot of detail to get the details that I need. But when I first read it, it's just an image. I read an image.
Wow.
And okay, all the emotions flow into it, all of, the conversations they have. But I think I'm constantly thinking of the settings. I think, well, that's a dark room, that's a light room, that's a pretty, it's an image all the time. When I read, it's an image, and that's the way I've always read. It's like imagery comes to my mind immediately.
Wow, that's a talent.
And I think it's just a learnt thing. but I've always been like that. I think that's just the way my mind works.
Right.
So it's, and also because I've been doing a lot of sort of Georgian dramas, I kind of know, you know, I know about the architecture, I know about the style, I know what's gone before, I know about the history.
Right.
And so it comes easily in a way.
So
And
when you're first getting involved with a script, I'm assuming there's a conversation that goes on between you and the director, and that, well, of course, the cameraman and the costume design, but that sort of needs to see if those visions are matching up, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's, I mean, that's again. So when I've read it and reread it and reread it, then I will put images together, and so that's my you know, even before I've had the interview, to be honest.
Oh wow.
So when I've had, you know, when I go for the interview, I will have my imagery kind of placed out. This is how I think, and
Right.
these are the image. This is the way that I think Anne Lister is. These are the things that I think, everything about Anne Walker, and I will put like detailed little mood boards together of how, you know, my vision. And again, I think in color a lot. I know that seems strange, but
No.
colors come to me with people's personalities and people's moods. I always thought of Anne as being you know, I know she wears black a lot, but I always thought of her as a red character. I loved, you know, sort of like, I always think of her as being dynamic, and red just comes to mind. So I wanted to put a lot of reds into her, you know, into the bill. So it's all those things that I know, you know, we're sort of psychoanalyzing all the different characters.
Of course.
And I do a lot of that with color and with mood.
Right,
and
because the set behind them informs what's going on in the story. It's not just decoration, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It tells you everything about that person, and it has to do it subtly, and it really has to do it cleverly. So it can't take over from the action or their conversation, because really you don't want anything to distract them.
Right.
However, it's got to give you enough detail that will say, is that a book is that something that Anne's reading, or, you know, just little hints, or can tell you a lot about that personality. So that's my job, to enhance the character in a subtle way.
Right. And for the audience, we are going to be delving into Anne's study a little bit later on in the interview, but you'll get an even better view of what Anna means by filling in those blanks in the background. You said that step one for you is putting all the sets and location in order. So you're kind of going through the script and making a list of all of that. Is that how that all?
Yeah. So pretty much. So when I've got, obviously, I call it, I have to break down my script, and it's I don't, you know, I can. There's an awful lot I can talk about, and I don't want to bore everybody, but you really it's a lot of list making. And so when I first get a script, I break it all down into all of the different sets that we need. So on Gentleman Jack, we had 200 sets.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Wow.
Yes.
See, this is, by the way, Anna, it's not boring. It's we really do want to hear the details of what it is you do, because you really have done it so successfully. So don't hold back.
So we break it into sets, and it can be exterior Halifax, it could be, you know, Shivden barn, Shivden pantry, you know, interior Savile room, it could be Anne Walker's dining room, it could be, anyway, you on and on. You break it all down.
Now, you told me also that the great thing about Gentleman Jack was that it was historical, so that you could go look for images. But as we all know, this all happened before photography. So you depended on some artists, correct?
Yes. So again, when you've kind of got a mood together, and these are part of my moods. So the first person that came to mind was an artist called Atkinson Grimshaw, who was a Leeds painter from Leeds.
Mhm.
And I wanted to capture, it was important for me. And also, you know, talking to Sally too, it was important, you know, we just didn't want any influence. We wanted to get the heart of Yorkshire.
Oh, wow.
We wanted to get the truth. And we want, you know, it's very important to, you know, get something that's quite, you know, strong in terms of where we are in the world.
Right.
And it's funny because, you know, when I first started to talk to Sally, I said, "Oh my God, Anne Lister's like, you know, Calamity Jane. She's like this buccaneering woman, you know, on a mission, like a." And she said, "Yes, Anna, but we want the true heart of Yorkshire." And I said, "I totally understand that."
Mhm.
So she, you know, so Atkinson Grimshaw was a fantastic artist. It was a little bit later, but he painted the most exquisite, you know, detailed lanes of Yorkshire, you know,
Yeah.
the sunset. He painted the weather. He just encaptured for me and for Sally too, encaptured what the true kind of Yorkshire feel was. And it's the cobbled roads, it's the wet, it's, well,
It's
you know,
everything
if I
that's in
can
his
imagine
painting.
it, they're beautiful. And also the tone and the colours that he uses for me were really quite strong and powerful. So
Yes.
that's what I wanted to push forward, you know,
Right.
for the look of the show.
I wasn't familiar with him until we did our first chat, and I went back to look at his work, and he's really spectacular. But while we were talking,
Mm.
you had just received a book via
Oh yeah,
of Mary Ellen Best, correct?
I had.
And that
Yes.
had that had a lot. Tell me a little bit more about discovering that
Oh my
book.
God. Well, that was wonderful. And I've got to tell you, it was totally Tom Pye, the
Mm,
costume designer,
lovely
who I
man.
adore.
Yeah.
And he went, "Anna, I found this book." And I immediately went, "Oh my God."
Yeah, right?
Got to do. And it was fantastic because, again, of the same period, and she's a little bit old, bit younger than Anne Lister, but she painted their world. And
Yes.
to find a book that is painting their world was so, you know, for me, just so enlightening,
Yeah.
because, you know, just to get a little bit of insight into their world before photography, all of this, it's so important.
Right.
And
And for our audience, if you want to look up Mary Ellen Best and some of her images, she actually, many of the images that are in that book are of Langton Hall, which of course was the Norcliffe's home. There is a painting that some of you may have already know about in the Norcliffe dining room, and Isabella Norcliffe is in that painting. There are entries in the diary where Anne talks about having met Mary Ellen Best. So for those of you who are truly scholars of Anne Lister and how that works together with the program, you really need to take a look at that book because it truly is fascinating. And Anna, I forgot to mention to you, but just this last week, somebody sent me a listing for Langton Hall has now
oh
been
yeah,
purchased, right?
yeah,
And
you
it's,
did send it to me. Wonderful.
yeah, it's turned into a B&B.
I
So
know.
yeah, I think that's really cool. You can actually go and stay in the same place where, as many of our
Yeah.
listeners know, Anne Lister had quite a night one night and visited 4 of those different bedrooms. So that's a little Listerania for those of you out in the audience. So let's move on. You also used several other artists, and we've been seeing a variety of those images as you and I have been talking. And
Yeah.
so let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you interface with those other 3 key players. You told me that was, of course, Sally, Tom Pye, and Matt Gray, who we did have.
Well,
All of them wonderful. We've had the opportunity to talk to them, but
oh
tell us
yeah.
a
We
little bit.
will just want to, you know, they are 4 of the best. That's all I'm going to say. They're great. Really, really wonderful, dynamic team. So of course Sally, who wrote it, so she's the go-to lady. You know, she knows everything. She's fantastic. We talked a lot. I talked. You know, we obviously discussed everything that we can discuss. One of the first things that happened when I first met Sally was she said, "Come and meet me in Halifax, Anna."
Oh, wow.
So it was, and I hadn't been to Halifax before, so all this is very new.
Uh-huh.
So we met in Halifax, and we went round all the streets, and she showed me the lay of the land, the gradients of the roads, the little nooks and crannies. We went to Shivden Hall, we studied it, we looked, she told me everything she loved about it. Well, immediately, you know, I think when you first talk to a director, you kind of, you know, it's all about listening and listening to what's important to them and figuring out, you know, she'll say, "Oh, I'm not sure," or "Maybe you could help me with this. But I love this," and it's a bit like, well, that's important, like, you know. So it's learning to focus on the areas that I know that are important to her for the story,
Right.
and listening to all the. So it's. I think it's just with a director, they know immediately what's important. You know, whether it's the location that's important, or
Right.
whether it's just the intimacy of the scene. And so
Right.
they're not too worried about the setting.
Right.
It's, you know, so it's working out what's important to them for that particular scene.
And it feels as if, from what you and I have talked about, that because you're such a visual person yourself, that when you're speaking with a director, I'm assuming directors also have to be highly visual people. So you already have a vocabulary between the two of you, I would think.
Yeah, we do. And but then saying that, sometimes because of the intensity, you know, for instance, in the love, you know, if it's a love scene, or, you know, if it's a very intimate scene, it's less about what's going on in the background.
Right.
You know, it's less, you know, they don't want to do a big wide. It's more important about, you know, what they're saying to each other and the intimacy around the scene. So, and so I suppose all the time I'm trying to interpret what's important, you know, what's important for me to do, and what's important to how far to go with the settings and the scene. You know, it's all of that is a collaboration.
Right. And you
And
said
also,
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
no, and also it's a bit like when you know, when Matt came on board and we talk through the scene, and he'd say, you know, but this is, you know, we want her to look powerful here. We want her to be, we don't just want her in one room. We want her to be striding through. And so, Anna, we want her to come from the kitchen into the house body. And so then I have to say, oh my God, well then, you know, I need to make sure that the kitchen's dressed as well as the hallway. So it's, and then we start talking as a sort of, you know, as a sort of like, you know, we all start talking dynamically together of how we put the scenes. So, and then when, you know, Tom comes on board, that's probably when we all get together and say, that's about when we're talking about the look.
Yeah.
And for instance, with Shivden Hall, it was wonderful and it's beautiful. But if you actually step into it, it's really, really dark.
Dark, very dark.
It's a dark hall.
Yeah, yeah.
And
so you're working with, well, obviously Matt had talked to us about how he had to deal with the lighting, and you have to work with the colors of fabrics, et cetera, that are in those rooms. And then Tom is playing off of it with the costumes. You shared with me that when you and Tom first talked about the visual that you had for the color palette.
Yes,
you both had the same palette, didn't you?
Yes, we did. Yeah,
I like that.
it was great. I think that was, we just knew it was, you know, we were going to work together. It was nice. Yeah, he rang me up. I think he was in New York doing something else, and he rang me up and he said, "Listen, I've kind of got some colours together, Anna." And I said, "Yeah, I've got some colours together too." And then we went, "Oh my God, they're exactly the same." no, we were just singing from the same hymn book. So, you know, it was wonderful. And, you know what, I think, yeah, we worked very well together. We kind of, when we knew what palettes and tones we were going for Anne Walker, he would complement it, you know, with the right, you know, the dresses. We'd talk endlessly about, well, the room's going to be this color. Well, I'm going to put her in a peach, and we talk like that, you know.
Right, which is wonderful. And you said that we started to talk a little bit about Halifax, and we're going to delve back into that a little deeper now. But tell me a little bit from the production design standpoint. There are certain brick walls you run into when you're trying to film in a town that's moved on from 1830.
Yeah.
So you really have to interface with the CGI folks as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a tough call trying to put together Halifax, because, you know, as I said before, Sally, you know, was very keen for us to be in Halifax.
Right.
Really important.
Yeah.
However, it was so difficult. You can't just turn up. It's so difficult with, you know, modern shops and people shopping, and Boots the chemist and Marks and Sparks. You can't just, you know, build over them. So we found this amazing street in Bradford, and it was great, but the period was wrong, and that was giving me headaches, and I knew it wasn't the right period. And however, Sally and I talked a lot about, you know, what was actually happening in Halifax at that time. And it was a perfect time. Everything was changing, you know, with the Industrial Revolution. People were building more. It was changing. And people were actually building the roads and building new, you know, new houses, new factories. Everyone was building all the time.
Right.
And so what I planned to do was, we had these sort of new Victorian buildings, new to kind of like mid-century Victorian buildings, and I wanted to build the old Tudor, because it was at the time it was changing from the old Tudor, you know, mills and shops, and turning into this modern industrial town, you know, very important town.
Yeah.
So I built on top of it, and the collaboration was that we did quite a lot of research. I did a lot of research, you know, went to the, you know, West Yorkshire Archive.
Yeah,
did quite a lot of research into the buildings and what Halifax looked like back in the day, and looked at the old wool shops and everything, and got quite a lot of old lithographs of the place. And so I did some sketches of some of the old streets in Halifax, and Market Square, Market Town, and did some rough sketches, and then took that to Sally, made sure, and it wasn't quite right. We needed the gradient. We wanted to see the fields in the back. You know, there was so much that was up and coming about Halifax.
Right, but it wasn't as big as Halifax is now. I mean, not that Halifax is New York City, but you could actively see. Well, here's the thing that came up in, I think it was when we talked to David Glover, that Hope Hall, where Christopher Rawson lived, you could actually see his mother's house off in the distance at that time. It was out in the country, and now it's just all industrialized.
Oh, it's so built up, right? And I think that was important to Sally to see, you know, the valleys of Halifax,
right?
And so I had to do quite a lot of collaboration with Gary Brown from Technicolor, and so we talked endlessly about, if I build, so how we actually approached it was we built up to 14 foot of the street, and we built over the top of
Got
these, you know, Victorian old mills.
Right.
And then from 14 foot upwards, he would turn it into CGI. So we could actually get Saran and the horses. So we built up as high as we could go
Wow.
to get it all in shot.
Wow.
So we built above her hat.
Wow.
And we actually measured it. So if we built above her hat,
That's
while
great.
sitting on the high flyer,
Right.
and then the rest of it, if we shot off, then Gary could create his, you know, he would extend the houses, and he could build the valleys,
Right.
and all the mills in the background.
Now there were a few houses. Excuse me. There were there were a few houses. There are several houses that are still existing, and you used a few of them.
Yes.
I'm going to see if I can say it right, having practiced just before we started. Haw End.
Horrend. Yes.
There we go. And we have
So
a picture of that, courtesy of Jason Warden. I wanted to thank.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So we have a picture of that. That was we used that for the Priestley's house, but it actually was the Priestley's house, and the Rawsons and the Priestleys owned it at one time.
Right. That's correct. And there's actually, you know, I have to laugh when we say it, because it was quite derelict when we.
Really?
It was really derelict when Sally went, I really, really want to use this.
Somebody's getting an upgrade.
I was like, oh gosh, okay. Yeah, and the thing is, it's really, like I said, all of this is so important. It's so important for the story. It's so important for the actors. You know, like I said, there's something within an old building that breathes, you know, their history, everything about them.
You bet.
So I totally get it. And yes, it was Newhouse, Lightcliffe. These were, but actually when you go into the house, there's a little plaque of, I'm not sure which Rawson it is, but there's a little plaque of Rawson.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Oh, that's
I know.
Cool. Wow.
I know.
I mean,
It's
I love that stuff. You know, that's one of the things that I absolutely adore about Halifax in general, and certainly Shivden Hall. Just being in the space has such energy, but to see all the details that are in there. Now, the challenge is with Shivden Hall is that what we're seeing in Shivden Hall, much of it happened after Ann Walker moved in. But in season 1, we're shooting it prior to Ann Walker being there. So you had some building to do, didn't you?
Yes. So this was a big dilemma, all for Sally too. So obviously, before Anne gets her kind of teeth into renovation, grand designs, we had to take it back. And obviously it's a listed building. There's only so much we can't stop pulling it apart.
Right.
So it was my challenge to take it back. Obviously the house was built in 1400s. So, and there's some wonderful, what we found in the dining room, there's a panel that comes away, secret panel. And you can see these amazing old Tudor Jacobean bits of wood that are all carved and painted. They're absolutely exquisite.
And the old plaster. Yeah.
The old plaster.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. And so that influenced me, you know, quite a lot. And I knew that I had to do something to the house body to try and take it back. So what we actually thought was the best thing to do, I actually made an old Jacobean chimney place.
I love that. Yeah.
And we had to build on top of the existing.
Yeah.
And also all the new panel work that she did later on, we had to cover all of that up. So we built on top of it.
Right. That's just wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. And
so,
I noticed we see Anne going up the staircase because there's some things you cannot avoid.
I know.
but we don't see in Gentleman Jack the beam that goes across at the end of the house body just before the staircase that has the family motto on it. We don't see the balusters that she put in that matches the sacramental railing at the Minster, because that starts happening
Later,
once
yes.
Anne Walker moves in. And oh, and by the way, to the audience, Anna is the most closed-lipped person we've talked to so far. There will be no spoilers in this conversation, but Anne Walker is moving in, so I'm sure that's going to cause a few things. But so we, and I asked you specifically about the tapestry that was in the staircase, because that covers something up, doesn't it?
Yes, that was what was it, Marion's
Landscape.
that she gave
Yeah.
to. Yeah, again, everything that I had to do, I had to think about the future and then take it back. So an awful lot of everything that I could try and cover, I had to try and cover.
Right.
To be revealed at a later date is all I'm going to say.
So you were, the whole time you were working on this, you and Sally and the crew, that you had in mind that there was going to be more than one season. It's kind of like saying, fingers crossed, we're going to start here, right? And we'll work backwards. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the only way to do it. We had to, and I had to do it, we have to be specific as well.
Yeah.
We have to work out what we can afford, how we can achieve it, and to the best of our ability.
Because you can't build everything. You don't have.
We can't build everything. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's. I want to move into one area that I just found really fascinating, and that's Anne's study. Tell me, you had a particular vision for Anne's study when you first went in. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we kind of built the upstairs of Anne's, of Shivden Hall, because it was so small. But Anne's study, I mean, obviously, if I go back to what it's actually like in Shivden, and it's perfect. I mean, it's absolutely perfect. It's so tiny. It's
a little tiny room. Yeah.
It's a little tiny room, and it's absolutely exquisite and wonderful, and it's got an awful lot of detail in there. But there's no way we could have filmed. It was just too tiny. You could probably fit 3 people in, and not much of a camera. Right. So the vision, I mean, I wanted to encompass everything that Anne represented in her office, into her little study. Right. I mean, this woman was into everything. She was into anthropology, she was into geology, she was into politics, coal mining.
Right.
She collected. So I just wanted to encompass her world.
Yes. You described it to me as trying to recreate the inside of Anne's brain.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you certainly, I think you really did, you did a great job with that. You said that Sally had some specifics that she asked for. I think was it clocks? Or
she said apparently Anne was like a big clock. She used to love clocks, and she used to collect clocks. She collected a lot of things. She's just so excited by everything, new technology. Right. She loved thermometers. Yeah. She loved barometers. She was just wanted to know how everything worked.
Yes.
And so, we did go on a bit of a mission to try and find these, early 19th century pieces. It was difficult.
And you said that you actually traveled, you went to Europe to find a lot of this, right?
We did. Yeah. I mean, obviously we always go home first, and we go to antique dealers. We give them specific tasks to find the right period and the right things, and it's very difficult. It's to create. It's all right finding one, but when you're trying to find 3 or 4 to dress a house, it's very, very difficult. So we ended up going to France, Belgium. We traveled around to specific antique dealers that knew where to get these things from.
And you mentioned, I had never heard of this before, but you mentioned something called the Newark Antiquarian Fair or something, and I looked at it. Phenomenal.
Oh yeah, Newark and oh, there's quite a few, but they're brilliant, and it's an awful lot of European kind of antiquarians sort of bring all their wares to Britain,
Right.
and so you can go to these antique fairs
Yeah.
and find these wonderful, and also it's just they become kind of go-to people that you can actually say to them, listen, we're looking for this specific,
See, that's great.
whatever it is, a specific brooch, or that's not Tom's territory, but a specific,
Yeah.
if we're looking for,
you did find a gondola pin, and
we
so
did,
Tom, right?
and so Tom, yeah,
Yeah.
we both found the same thing.
I asked him.
Yeah,
who
I know.
got used. It was his.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but we're always constantly on the lookout.
Yeah.
And obviously I do have a wonderful team that that look out for these things for us. So
what happens with all the stuff that you gather for a production at the end of the production, Anna? Does it get sold? Is it kept for, obviously for next season, some of it, but what happens with it?
yes, we keep it, we store it. We were hoping for a second series, so we knew it was going to come in handy. And it is very, like I said, it's very tough and very difficult and very time consuming to find the right, the right period,
right,
and also the quantity,
Yes.
So to find chairs for a dining suite, sometimes you can find 2, but you can't find 6,
right.
So that's why we had to go to Europe to find, we had everything that we did, from the Priestley's to everything, had to be furnished, because like I said, the Priestley's was derelict. We had to make it over.
It's amazing.
Even Anne Walker's house, it was all filled with modern furniture. There was a lot that we had to do.
In the Priestley's house, in the parlor that they sit in, the panels of the door had kind of a mural on those. In the background, was that painted on there for the program?
No, they were original.
Oh my gosh!
They're original.
Wow!
I know.
Cool. Now I want to see a close-up of them. I thought you'd created it for the show.
No. Obviously, when it comes to history, if it's there, we keep it.
Yeah. Wow.
So no. That was a bit like, no, we have to keep that. That's very important. They were original of the time. So we kept the panels. Yeah.
What a great job you have.
I know.
I'm just like,
it's so exciting.
Yeah. We have actually made it through our conversation part here, and we're ready to go into questions. Are you ready to take
it?
Okay. I did ask you this one earlier. It's not in my list, but somebody had written me, and that was about the painting of what appears to be Sir Thomas More in the background. And I thought it was in Steph Belcom's office, but now you've told me that was at the Black Swan.
Black Swan, yeah, that was at the Black Swan, and we were playing around a little bit, so we figured out that the Black Swan owner, had a little bit scar. Could have been Catholic, so he could have been Catholic. Yeah,
I love that. So you really are thinking about this stuff.
Yes, of course.
And I do want to ask you this. When I worked for Disney, I discovered that things in Disneyland, when you serve Disney World, whatever you're in, the shop windows, the store names, etc., are actually real people that are connected to Disney. And you said that there's something that does go on with that in your world, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I can honestly say, listen, I'm not talking about Gentleman Jack here.
Yes.
In the past, there's been an awful lot of Pritchards that are owners of shops. However, we were very specific, and Thomas Love, my wonderful graphic designer, who he studied a lot, Anne's diaries and worked with Anne Choma, and he did a lot of research into all the shop signs. He found Lister's apothecary store. All of this was down to the diaries, and he worked closely with the historians to get the right
Right.
the right names.
Well, as you said, this particular story is based on a very specific history, so you do have that to deal with. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see. When you look back at completed work like Gentleman Jack season 1 with 200 sets, are there things you wish you could have done differently? How does that inform your work on the subsequent seasons?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, I suppose when some of the challenges we've had has been back. We have to keep going back to locations and keep going back and keep going back.
Ah,
And it's quite tough because like I said, we've got a team of people that we dress, we undress, we dress, we undress. And I don't think, most of the time we can work it out with the schedules, but it's quite hard going. And I think sometimes, it could, and there are the main sets, which are very important, but it could have been easier maybe if we'd had, smaller sets like the farms. We could have built them and
right.
be a little bit more, can leave things set up.
Right, right. Are there, and I don't know if you can tell me this or not, but will you have more built sets in season 2 than you did in season 1? I mean, now that it's been successful enough to get into a new season?
I think so. I think, yes, because of COVID reasons, and we can't, I think because COVID is going to have a huge impact on how we start filming this. The answer is yes, we don't have the facility to keep going to 200 sets.
Right, of course.
Wow. So I think, yes.
Wow, what a professional challenge.
That's
going to be interesting to see. I want to interview you at the end of season 2 when you're done filming season 2 and talk about how you had to deal with that. Because
okay, I know it's a lot of pressure. Yeah, a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and no, I'm not going to ask her if they're starting filming because I've already been told she can't tell me. So sorry. All right. So this is from Yannicka. As far as location choices are concerned, which were the most challenging to come up with and why, aside from Shivden?
Like I said, I think I briefly spoke about Halifax. That was challenging. Although with every challenge, there's always part of me that goes, we're going to make this work. So, what was the biggest challenge? I think, like I said, we had to do Halifax twice, I think. Yeah. So we have to build it, we had to take it down, we had to build it, we had to take it down. Yeah. Now that is a lot of work.
Yeah. Oh, I have a question for you surrounding that. We've seen outtakes that showed a mass of soldiers that kind of was part of the what was happening with the reform movement that got cut from series.
Yes.
Yes. That has to be really something to put all that together and then not use it.
Yes, I know. Well, I think, to be honest, I know it's a bit blasé to say it, but we get used to that.
Sure. Yeah, it's your job.
It's all for the story, and it was powerful, and we made a lot. Especially Thomas. I had a team of people making most amazing banners.
Wow.
And it takes a lot of every set we think about. We have to put in quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
To pull it off.
Yeah.
And
all comes down to the
it's
story.
It's not to say that we don't get excited by it. Everything that every set that we address, we get so excited about it. I have a good strong team behind me, and we all get so excited about making every single banner. We really do. It's a shame not to have seen it, but we'll make use of them at some point.
Yeah, maybe it'll show up. I mean, we still have the reform revolution to go through, so there'll be a place for it. Let's see. This is from Steph. Were the prop diaries replicated by hand by Thomas Love on your team, or was fabrication outsourced? Would replicas be available? In other words, can they get replicas of the diaries?
That's a thought. I haven't thought about that, and I don't think we can, but you never know. Watch this space.
Yeah.
Graphics, Thomas Love, he made those diaries.
Mm.
And we had, I mean, we obviously did quite a lot of research. I went to the archives first up and took detailed photographs of all the marble paper.
Wow.
Took photographs of all the, the leather, everything that she used. So obviously we found a wonderful, person that did marbling to replicate the marble that she had on each diary.
Wow.
And
Anna,
then we had samples of leather. We worked out which was the best. And then it was outsourced to a bookbinders to put it together.
Anna,
But
what was it like to open up those diaries, the real diaries, and know that Ann Lister had written on those pages? How did you feel?
It was amazing. Do you know what? I can't, almost brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even imagine what that discovery would feel like for you. Do
you know, I do feel really privileged, because I remember opening one and Choma showed me one page and there was tears on it.
Oh my God.
There was we saw, it was tears when she was like breaking up with Mariana. There was absolute tear. Anyway, I can't remember the page or the details, but I remember just being so moved.
And then that certainly had to inform your work going forward. I mean, how can you experience that and not bring that to your work? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you've touched that real person at that point.
Oh my God, it really did move me. And it was amazing for them to take me in there and show me every detail. But it was important.
Thank you for sharing that moment. That was I can't even imagine. I would love to have that opportunity. At what point do you and your team decide between sourcing original period pieces versus fabricating props? Were there particular items that frustrated your team during season one?
Oh,
is it a cost issue?
We kind of there's an awful lot of frustration there. Obviously, we want to get the real thing. I know it's sometimes we have to get replicas, and not always in love with that. We try and get the real deal because it's important. And also I always want it to fit the place,
of course,
fit everything needs to fit. But we realized, again, nearly 200 years ago, it's very, very difficult to find the right pieces. And things like, I think we had a lot of trouble with the tinderbox. So you remember when she was burning the was it the wedding no, she was burning, that's right, Anne was burning the letter that she got with a tinderbox,
which was, I love that little thing.
It's obviously what they use, but could we get that to work? The answer was it was so difficult.
Is there a butane lighter inside of there?
There was things like that we had to, there was like, no, oh my God, it was such a struggle. It was really, because these things, you can get them, but they do not work. They do not work. So that had to go to special effects to try and, get some sort of equipment in there to try and make it burn. We do, we struggle a lot with getting the right things to look the way they are and actually work. And the answer is, it takes a lot of patience.
You've done a phenomenal job. This is from Alison Kirchgasser. Whose idea was it to create a shelf of books in the colors of the rainbow in Anne Walker's library? They love that Easter egg. Did you know that you did that?
Well, like I said, I've got a very brilliant set decorator, Sarah Smith. And she thinks about all these things. I'm sure she did it deliberately.
It was, it's, I haven't shared, can't remember if I shared with you, but there is a little hashtag that goes on in one of our Gentleman Jack groups called No Detail Left Unfetishized. And believe me, everything that you do everything that your set dressers do, everything that goes into the costumes. There are hundreds of people out there that can tell you to the nth degree what you've done there. It's the world you have created has been created so successfully that you've given people's minds a place to live when they think about Anne. So that's quite a thing to do. Okay, tell us about the chaumière design. It feels absolutely magical on the screen. What was it like planning, building, and using the space?
Oh my gosh. Well, that was, there was a little snippet in there, a little snippet in the diaries, but not enough to tell us really what it was like. And I did work with Sally and Anchoma on this. However, how I went about it, I started looking at kind of where Anne had travelled, where she got this idea from, the chaumière. So I knew it was like a French, it's a French little house. So I went back into the diaries, all right, where she travelled, what she's seen, and I started looking at kind of chaumières in France and Brittany, and like I said, I was trying to follow her imagination, where she's seen these things. What is it why does she want to build this?
Wow.
And I found some sort of ideas in, like I said, in Brittany and France, and with a lot of conversations with Sally, kind of started drawing, starting, making, and then, that comes along.
The first time that the camera, opens up on the chaumière, I almost expect Disney with two little birds bringing a little banner up, music playing. It was perfect. Perfect in every way. Really gorgeous. This is from Livia. Many of the show props are beloved by fans. In particular, Anne Walker's sketch of Anne Lister that she burns in the fireplace while in Scotland. Who made it? And were multiple made and burned?
Yes. So again, my wonderful graphic designer, Thomas Love. We took it, because obviously there's the original portrait, which we were trying to replicate.
Right.
And we took a photograph of Saran sitting in a. We actually found a chair, the chair. We found that chair.
Unbelievable.
And we took a photograph of her sitting in the chair as she was, and then Thomas did a sketch and then painted it. And yes, we had to do that quite a few times.
Oh my! Wow. I could talk to you for hours, but unfortunately we can't. So here's one last one, not a question, but a popular audience request. Consider recording some behind the scenes videos for posterity. We love knowing how you work.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is an extremely engaged audience. There's a cottage industry in Tom Pye's waistcoats. There's, but along with many other things, believe me. Anna, we have reached our time limit, but I just want to share with you, this has just been delightful. I have so enjoyed talking with you, not only the first time, but this time. It's just been grand. And we all wish you the best of success on season 2. And we're certainly all pulling for more activity during the awards seasons, because you totally deserve it. So
yeah, that's very kind.
Yeah.
See.
So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And as I've shared with you, you're now just going to be booted out into the black hole of nowhere, but know that we're all waving goodbye to you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Anna.
Cheers.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And please stick around for a minute here. I'd like to talk about a couple of announcements. First of all, I'd like to let you know about an upcoming event, the Anne Lister Research Summit. That will be happening September 25th through the 27th. This has been organized by a group of people who are heavily involved in Anne Lister research. It's the people that are actively involved on Packed with Potential, and that includes our very own Livia Labate and Steph Galloway. That's going to be, as I said, September 25th through 27th. That's the Ann Lister Research Summit, and you can find out more about it. You have your pens out? Ready? I'll give you 1 second. Okay. AnnListerResearchSummit.org. So take a look at that. And then Ann Lister is also finally getting her due in one other very exciting thing, and we'll be talking more about this in the future. We have now officially launched the Ann Lister Society. The Ann Lister Society will be focusing on Ann Lister research. There are some very specific goals that we're going to be looking at, but I want you to check that one out at annlistersociety.org. That's being headed up by Lori Shannon, a very qualified person with deep roots into that type of society. So we do have many more ALBW lives coming up. We'll be posting a schedule in the not too distant future. We're going to take a little break for the rest of August and into the first few weeks of September. But we look forward in getting back into some of the more historical details behind Ann Lister, and I hope you'll tune in and enjoy those. So thanks again for joining in. Please stay tuned for more information about Ann Lister Birthday Week coming up July 11th through the 18th. And as always, I want to thank my technical team and my co-organizers, Livia Labate, Steph Galloway, Jennifer Grant, and of course, Cheryl McDonald. So have a great day, enjoy, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.